February 4th, 2022. I taped the CBS this morning with this particular date on it, but for some reason it didn't record on the box. There was something very interesting. I had a real life human experience with a person that came to stay with me for a while under special circumstance. And she referred to herself as Japanese. Now, I don't know what that is. I've never heard of it, ever. I've heard of Japanese. No idea what anything about that very particular look, visually, interesting name, interesting accent. Had never met, it was like one of a kind. Never, ever knew that they had a label that they go around or use. And I say they, meaning only the one that I actually met. Interchangeably, kind of like tu et vous. For me, they is one and the same at the moment for this conversation. So, but she would go out, and at the time where I was living, there was a very large influx of what sounded, by sound word pattern only, sounded like Spanish or Hispanic, because again, forgive me, I don't know what the actual difference in diction is in motion and action, but so there was a very large, like Latin, we'll call it, but Hispanic or Spanish Latin that came in with and then there was like a flag, like, again, I've heard people refer to themselves as El Salvador, Honduras. Nobody really says Venezuela, but the flag is a little, because the colors look the same, so it gets confusing. One has an emblem embossed over it. I don't know what that means. But in this particular area of Patchogue, there was a very large Latin-speaking and sounding population that moved in. And I had this one non-Latin, non-Spanish, non-Hispanic person who would go out on the main street, and she said she would come back and she'd be all mad and upset. And I said, "What's the matter, Miss Ellen?" And she says, I walk out on the street and they speak to me as if I'm a Hispanic woman. I'm not Hispanic. I go, "Well, I know you're not," but I was like, "Why does that bother you so much?" She says, "I don't know, it just does." I'm like, all right. So I think she called it Dutch. Did not sound linguistically Dutch to me, but for her it was Dutch. But for me, it was not. It was some form of tribal Dutch, let's put it that way. It was not like a Francois-based Dutch with like maybe a Greek undertone mixed in. It was something completely different. It sounded more, whatever, I know what it sounded like. So anyway, but she was highly insulted when she walked down the street, and the local population just assumed she was Hispanic and would speak to her as though she was, which I found interesting. I really did not in the house make a comment on it. I just observed her frustration. We didn't talk about it other than that one time that she made a big, not made a big deal, but she made a big statement about it, just how it upset her, and I could see how frazzled she was. I, of course, did not have that problem on the boulevard or on the main street of Patchogue. Nobody assumed I was Latin. Nobody assumed I was Spanish. Nobody assumed I was Hispanic. I don't know what they assumed I was, but they knew I wasn't that. I also today, I think it was today, it was the second time, which reminded me of that story on teleportation, the television. I've been to Jamaica, at least when I got on the air, I bought a ticket to Jamaica. I bought a plane flight to Jamaica in, I think, 1995 or 1996. And, was it 96? Maybe it was 97. 96, 97, I think. And I went down to the island of Jamaica. I can't remember if I stayed in Montego Bay or whatever the other one was. But when I went to the resort, the island people of Jamaica, their authenticism, I experienced firsthand in person-to-person contact. I had a lovely time. I went home, didn't really talk much about it, no point in doing so. But today, I see a travel commercial on Channel 2 that has some Middle Eastern looking woman like in a travel to Jamaica kind of a way. And I'm like, what is that about? That's not what Jamaica looks like, not by Islander standards. And I'm like, what? Why are they doing this? Why are they trying to repaint each other and take away each other's authentic self? And then yesterday, I saw on the teleportation image, I saw when they were doing a look at the Olympics, there was a team of 4 men holding up what they called a Jamaican flag. Now, they're referring to the Jamaican flag as black, green with a yellow X on it. I don't know, I can't confirm it. I don't know anybody real in the world. But the 4 men standing behind this flag did not look Jamaican, not as Islander standards from when I was there in 1997, 98 time frame of what lives in the Montego Bayside. And from airport to that resort area, these 4 men did not look at all Islander Jamaican in the Caribbean area. And also, one of them spoke. He was not Rastafarian. He did not speak with like Jamaicans have this beautiful melodic, it's a melody. It's a melodic way of speaking. It's, again, it's like Mozart trying to explain how the notes fit inside of a bar on a music sheet. Like, I have trouble explaining it, but I try. They have the most interesting and beautiful tone, or some that I've spoken with in the limited experience. And anyway, so the gentleman that I saw at the Olympics holding the flag, the one that spoke out of the 4, that not one of them looked traditional or authentic Jamaican, one of them also had an accent, an English accent, that did not sound American. It did not sound Jamaican. It sounded some other, I have no idea. I don't know. I think the word colony is indicative of a specific territory on a domestic side. I think tribal is what I would call this gentleman who spoke behind the flag, but he didn't look like the flag and he didn't look like the people on the island, if that's what he was referring the flag to, which gets confusing. Again, it was a very interesting dilemma to find on the TV. Then I see this. Now, what I find interesting, I don't have one of these jackets, but this patch right here, whatever, I don't know what this patch means on this jacket. The locals in Bayside Station, New York, they have that patch over here, some of them. All different kinds of people that walk around with that patch and that jacket. I have no idea what that's associated with. I don't know if is that a campaign to raise money? Is that a foundation? And what do these words even mean when it comes to she's in Ukraine, supposedly she's in Ukraine. Speaking to, this is her, and she's speaking to someone with this, which again, they're saying that that's Ukraine. I don't know anybody who, that's the problem with this teleportation, and with these mixed chemical messages that keep coming through, it gets very confusing. But this is what she said. She said, or they say, something about headlines I've never even heard of, that Russia has some kind of war games near Moscow. They bomb Syria, some other country somewhere in the world. And then the UN, something about war crimes. I'm like, right, okay, so then I'm thinking, well, how does that one little piece of information that I've never had before, how does that translate to the gun violence in New York City? And with this influx of non-Indigenous folk by multiple tactic into the Northeast coast, how could those possibly be intertwined?
They have what they need to defend their territory. The reality, according to the US, is that an invasion would be horrific.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin will be in Beijing tomorrow for the Olympics opening ceremony and to meet with China's leader Xi Jinping. China's support could be crucial for Putin if Russia invades Ukraine and is then hit with economic sanctions by the US and its allies. Nate.
Holly Williams in Ukraine, thank you. There's breaking news overnight in Syria where U.S. Special Operations Forces carried out a counterterrorism raid. The Pentagon says it was successful with no U.S. casualties. Rescue workers in Syria say at least 13 people died, including 6 children and 4 women. David Martin has more from the Pentagon.
Crumbling concrete and rubble is evidence of the deadly U.S. Special Operations raid carried out overnight in Syria. It happened in the town of Atma, not far from the Turkish border, an area of northwest Syria known as a hotbed for terrorist organizations. Reports from residents on the ground say the raid lasted 2 hours and involved helicopters, explosives, and machine gun fire.
And then I go back and forth. This is like so frustrating because I'm like, all right, so if that was the case and that's the story that's going on over in that area, and then somehow someone allowed through whatever, and we didn't agree to it wholeheartedly, in transporting, like some Underground Railroad type style, people over to where we have a set stone requirement with some facial profile, like one layer of understanding that is non-negotiable in my area, because I don't know what's going on elsewhere. But we got one level of, no, it's a non-negotiable item. It's one anchor. Then I'm thinking, now, I needed that information, perhaps when I was younger, some of this information when I was younger, to protect myself and to be a better participant in protecting whatever or wherever I'm needed. And then I'm thinking, I still, because I've been knocked out of the information loop, still need it. They just brought that to light. Whether it's actually true or not, I cannot say for sure. But then I'm thinking, now, if somebody Underground Railroad, those people who now have a fight because they don't like being displaced and they're tattling in all the wrong methods, they're going to start massive confusion in wherever they were Underground Railroaded to. And they're going to start like a whatever, and they might hold the innocent people who don't know what happened over there to them and took no part in that. They might start to take prisoners or hostages in a way that the prisoner or the hostage may not know that they've been taken or that they're even in danger because of this new influx of whatever had a problem somewhere else, and somebody thought that they were being kind or nice or whatever. It gets really confusing from what angle and what anchor you tell a story from. What I do know for certain is that where I wake up every day, there's been a rock, there's been a paper, and there's some scissor somewhere that is supposed to be like last call for I really need help. And I don't know, even with that simple, I won't even call it childish games, but like something to remind the youth that if they get caught in trouble or in a war that they don't understand, how do they raise their hand to the adults that do know what's going on in serious things? Serious. SERIOUS. So that's where my headspace is this morning. On top of this light that goes to like the serious level, and then I can change the angle and I can see dimensionally contrast on value. I mentioned about traversing constellations and zodiac, and then now there's just one star. I don't even see constellations anymore with this level of light pollution. I can't even see or view with my naked eye. When I go to stand outside at night, I only see one North Star. I don't see constellations, and that's been for quite some time since I've been brought back to this fallout shelter in New York. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. I'm going to pause this for a second because then they bring in gun violence on the, but it's happening on my side. And they've invested in this technology where now people can print pieces of enhanced whatever. They're slipping it in their weapons, and now they're making a simple handgun into a machine gun in like the streets of like the local indigenous. We did not have this. Who brought this in? Like I mean, like, again, it's not for a mother, it's not the type of situation you want your children to grow up again around. Are machine guns going off, and you need like some protected safe space to raise children. It's just like, and in such an increasing population of, I don't even know who they are or where they're arriving from, but it is like massive amounts of a population for, this is all the news that we've been made aware of. So then it makes you wonder, now if someone's inside New York and this population has drifted into an area that has rock, paper, scissors confirmation for sure, how does one protect the information trying to get through on a teleportation device to the correct message to the correct people when it's like in deluge timing?
President Biden travels to New York City today to meet with the mayor.
This was
Eric
yesterday.
Adams,
This is a
amid spike in
replay.
Violent crime. Thousands of NYPD officers and employees filled the streets Wednesday for the funeral of Officer Wilbert Mora. He and his partner were both shot and killed last month while responding to a call. Nationwide, that makes 5 officers killed by gunfire this year and 30 wounded. And that's on pace for a very sharp increase from just 2 years ago. Jeff Begay shows us that dangerous guns are easier than ever for the criminals to get their hands on.
At this ATF firing range in Virginia, we watched as a legal semi-automatic handgun was converted into an illegal machine capable of firing off more than 30 rounds almost instantaneously. Today,
Now, this is my question. These are the 2 gentlemen that get invited to ATF to have that conversation. I don't know where ATF is. I don't know where they operate or based out of. What I do know is that I've been capable and ready to assist in an at your service kind of a way, and I've never even been asked or called upon or into a conversation like that. Why is that? Why are they the go-to people to bring into an ATF conversation and to even make aware that the technology is now here, putting the lives of the NYPD in my area in jeopardy? Why, in America, where we have a set rock and paper system, why are non-rock paper representatives being given inside information, I would deem class information, while I'm being held at class zero information, or after the fact information? Why is that exactly? How is, by giving these 2 gentlemen inside information and a leg up or a lead in, how is that decreasing crime in New York City for my officers who don't carry machine guns? They carry 1 bullet at a time because they shouldn't even be put in that position. It's just to defend themselves.
You can manufacture that little conversion device on your kitchen table in a 3D printer.
ATF Acting Director Marvin Richardson says technology is...
Now, he's an ATF, what is he? ATF Acting Director. You mean inside a home state that's surrounded by other states that have a very specific code that has a very specific rock, paper system? Where is the overlord to this situation? I mean, yesterday, President Joe Biden at U.S. level, which they were referencing as the Fed level, that's one level, that's the top tier in this area. Then just below that, there's the state, which is Kathy Hochul, Governor Kathy Hochul. And then just below that is Mayor Eric Adams. Interesting. So yet again, another situation where what's not part of paper and rock system has inserted itself into some kind of leadership position to get inside information, while I know in my own personal instance, I've been held at a 0 class. Why is there anyone allowed inside and at a higher class system than myself inside an area that very distinctly has a rock and paper system? Where are scissors on this?
is partially to blame for the recent rise in gun-related crime.
Technology has allowed us to be able to take a firearm and reduce it to a box of parts.
Information, by the way, can be just as deadly as a machine gun. So that's why I don't understand why the people who deal with handguns and whatever, and that distraction, why they're allowing little sieve, SIVE type pinholes. If you have one solid basin, why would you take any utility or tool and start poking holes in its integrity and start leaking stuff? I just don't understand. Whatever was inside the integritous unit will start to leak out and leach out, and then you'll have nothing left. That is one of the most dangerous tactics to allow to take hold in, like, for real. But yet it's evident everywhere I look on this teleportation, the way that they're describing their mythology and methodology and who they've inserted where. Where is the protection unit for rock and paper?
That isn't necessarily covered by the federal firearms laws. You've got different platforms that allow you to order it from the privacy of your home, have it delivered to your front door. It's almost a perfect storm.
So how does the ATF counter that?
Remember, the Gun Control Act, 1968, is 54 years old. The National Firearms Act of 1934 is 88 years old. So
So you're saying the laws on the books are outdated?
No, I think that the actual dates of the statute's enactments would say that.
Now, I have no idea what that man just said. I know that he's speaking English. I know that he's inside something called an ATF. I believe that interview took place inside of the domestic United States of North America, but I don't know for sure because it's not labeled, because sometimes they say stuff and they don't want to take responsibility for stuff. And so now they're speaking inside a rock and paper unit of, for sure, confirmation, without a shadow of a doubt. And they're using language because they know more about the inside system than I was ever made aware of. How did that happen?
Increasingly, the ATF says these modified weapons, along with homemade so-called ghost guns, are leaving law enforcement outgunned.
How many guns do you have in here?
About 15,000.
Acting Deputy Director Thomas Chittum showed us the reference library ATF uses for its investigations. But guns assembled, built, or modified at home are almost
And why is this level of technology out in the general public? Do you understand? Like, I mean, I know there's levels of feathers and whatever, but it is like these are dangerous games that look like they're becoming increasing threats. And then you put employment in on it of who already is better educated because of the employment opportunities they were given, while others were held in a zero class, zero insider information position. I mean, I'm unable to defend myself against persons and law enforcement at any level now. That's a really scary thought, especially while X-ray technology is going on. If I was able to get the piece that I saw this morning, the reason why I wanted the piece in the morning so bad is that they had an Earth cam, I think it was an Earth cam, or it was a camera looking out New York City onto the landscape. And all of a sudden, if you watch the image on the screen, it looked like it looked like somebody in the old days when they used to hit the button and it would flash, like a big flash would come on. And it was like sending like almost like Morse code, same signals. And it reminds me of like, okay, so if we're a marble or the size of a marble inside of a larger system, and we've gotten into some kind of black hole situation, and somebody's trying to send like sonar signal to the planet to try to locate its orbit because we're so far off orbit that we no longer in this area have constellations. I'm like, I was going to make a note of it, that I saw, I mean, not that I can do anything, I can't act upon that information, but I sure saw that information this morning in the morning camera view, just looking out to the city. There were these flashes of light hitting the sides of the building, but like in real quick sequence. It doesn't look like the camera itself is moving, but it's a change in the light going from having density like this to having nothing, and then going back to this within it like a nanosecond. But it's something that, as I was watching it, it was playing with the light in my eyes so like horrifically that it made me cognitively aware of like, oh my God, what is that? And to look at it. So I taped it to go back to it, but I couldn't because it didn't tape properly. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. And it's February 4th, 2022. This particular teleportation or television was breaking news for me on February 3rd, 2022. That's when the broadcast was. Today is the first day that I've actually been able to sit down and watch it, because yesterday I didn't have continuous access to the television. So unless I was walking through the room, I did not hear what was going on.